Hello everyone, David Sloan here. I want to show you today how to do a word study using Logos Bible software. Now if you go to logos.com and you search for Logos 7 Basic, what will come up is this page here, or you can type in this URL, logos.com/product/136022/basic. Either approach, a search for Logos 7 Basic would do the same thing in Logos Bible software from logos.com. So you get back to this page that I was on, and you find that you can download this software for free. Now, Logos has a very advanced library. If you want to have an endless library of commentaries and Bible dictionaries and other resources, you can purchase a more expensive package. But today I just want to show what you can do for free. So you add this to your cart, you install it, and you open it on your computer, and you will find something similar to what you see on my screen now. If you don't have the Lexham English Bible open, you can click up here where it shows a book. This is to open books in your library. Now I have tons of resources here, but I could type in Lexham English Bible. I've got still tons of resources. Let me just limit it to LEB, which is Lexham English Bible. I open up the Lexham English Bible and it will appear here. Now let's say I'm doing an exegesis paper on Genesis 2:18 through 25. So I type Genesis 2:18 in this window here, and it takes me to my passage. And I see in this passage, "Then Yahweh God said, 'It is not good that the man is alone. I will make for him a helper as his counterpart.'" Or you may know this from a different version where it's a suitable helper, and you're thinking, what exactly does that mean? What does it mean that the woman is created to be this suitable helper? This is a good question to ask whenever you're doing an exegesis paper. What does this mean? What does that mean? And sometimes the best way to find an answer is in doing a word study. Now when we do a word study, what we want to find is, what does this Hebrew word mean? The Old Testament is written in Hebrew, the New Testament in Greek. We want to find, what is the meaning of the Hebrew word? I know what helper means in English. Does it mean the same thing when God inspired the writer to write this phrase? Was he thinking what I would be thinking in English? One way we can tell is we can right-click on the word helper. Now what you get here is you get a number of choices here. Yours might be a little bit different from mine just because of how I've customized my software. But you should also notice what's on the right. What's on the right tells you that this menu is being applied to the English word helper. Now, I don't want to do a Bible word study on the English word helper. Once again, I know what the word helper means. I could look and see where that word occurs in the Bible, but what's more interesting to me is, where does this same Hebrew word occur? So I come down here where it shows this Hebrew word, and I see it in these different forms. This first one is the exact form that appears in Genesis 2:18, but I don't need to be that exact. What I want to look for is this one with this kind of circle pie chart here. This is the lemma, as it says to the right over here. This is the basic dictionary form of the word ezer. And it says that it means help or assistance. Still, that idea of assistance makes me think of an assistant. So is the wife the husband's assistant? Well, let's take a look. We have to click on this. If you keep up here, it's again going to search the English word. But if you click where you have the lemma, now you're going to be looking at, where does this same word, ezer, occur in the Bible? And there are two things I could do here. I could come down here and I could do a Bible word study. I will show you that in a moment. Or if I scroll down further, it allows me to search. And I want to search this research. That is, I'm searching Lexham English Bible to find out, where else do we see this word as it is translating, or as it's translated in Lexham English Bible. I'm going to remove this here. I just happen to be showing a different version, which you can add a different version if you have one in your library there. But looking at this word, I now see that this word occurs 17 times in 16 different verses. In one verse, it must occur twice in the Old Testament because it's this Hebrew word, so it's not going to be looking into the New Testament. But I find the first time it occurs is in Genesis 2:18, and then it occurs again in Genesis 2:20. I will make for him a helper as his counterpart. And then among the animals, for the man there was not found a helper as his counterpart. Okay, so that's where it's used in my passage. But the word is also used in the book of Exodus. And the one whose name was Eliezer, for the God of my father was my help. Now that doesn't sound like an assistant. In this case, the word Ezer is referring to God, that God came in and was a help. Now we could look in the context and find out exactly what's going on in this passage. You could you could left click over here, and it will jump your Lexham English Bible right over to that passage, and you look back and you see, oh, this is Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, who is speaking, and Moses is talking with him, and as they're exchanging this dialogue, Moses says, the God of my father was my help. And so okay, God steps in and he plays the role of Ezer here. Deuteronomy 33:7 we could look at again, and once again he said this of Judah, hear, O Yahweh, that is the Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him to his people. His own hands strive for him, and may you be a help against his foes. May who be a help? Yahweh. May the Lord be a help. And we could look again at Deuteronomy 33, saved by Yahweh, the shield of your help. Psalm 20, may he send you help from the sanctuary, again referring to the Lord. Psalm 70, but I am poor and needy. O God, hasten to me. You are my help and my deliverer. O Yahweh, do not delay. Psalm 89, formerly you spoke in a vision to your faithful ones and said, I have bestowed help on a mighty man. I have exalted one chosen from the people. And it goes on to talk about David as having God's help. And we could look down through all 17 occurrences of this word, and we find very often it refers to God as being a help. So now, far from this perhaps original reading which we might have given Genesis 2:18, this is not saying, I'm going to make man an assistant, and, oh, wife, you are the assistant to the husband. But this is saying you are a help to him, much as God is a help to him. There is perhaps in this word no indication of if the wife is higher than or lower than. This word Ezer in Hebrew just simply means someone who comes to the assistance, whether they come from a position of authority or not. We learned that from looking at every occurrence of this word. Once again, going back to Genesis 2:18, right-clicking on the word, making sure we do not have the English word selected, but the Hebrew word down here, and coming down to where it says search. I want to search this resource, and I now see all 17 occurrences of the word, and I get an idea of what it means. The other thing I could do, once again, if this is selected, and I come over here to a Bible word study, what the Bible word study does is it shows me in the Lexham English Bible, how does this word get translated in other places? And we see here, I can click on this particular word. 13 out of the 16 places it gets translated help. Over here, 2 times it gets translated helper. And over here, once it gets translated, they will receive little help. So these are 3 different ways that this word is rendered. You can see if I hover over the word help, it now shows me other Hebrew words that are translated as help. And I see Ezer is the one that gets the biggest chart. So that is the most common way of saying help. But there are other words that could have been used. The Bible word study also links me into specific dictionaries. Now, once again, I have a more complete library than you would. I believe with the free version, you get the abridged BDB. So if we click on this, now it tells me Ezer, help, succor, one who helps. And so I could get a little bit of a definition from the abridged Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew English lexicon of the Old Testament. Going back to my Bible word study, we can find out other things about this word here, but the ones that I've highlighted are the ones most important for you to know for this case. Now let's do this again just to get a little more practice. Let's say, I will make for him a helper as his counterpart. What do you mean as his counterpart? Or, as other versions say, a suitable helper. What do you mean suitable? Like, he has to decide whether or not she's pleasing to him, and if not, he can throw her out? What does that word mean? So I right-click on the word counterpart. Once again, I do not want to select the English word, because then it's going to search for all the places where that English word occurs, which is really up to the whim of the translator. But if I select down here, once again, the one with the little pie graph like in the Bible word study, I'm looking at the lemma. It's this word neged. Well, what does neged mean? As we come in here, I could do a Bible word study, or I could scroll down and say, search this resource. Tell me, where else does this word occur in the Lexham English Bible? That is, really in the Old Testament. Where else does this word occur? And how does it get translated in the Lexham English Bible? We see it gets translated as counterpart the first two times, but then she sat opposite him. The word neged can mean opposite. She sat away from him, in the presence, before my kinsman. I will go ahead of you. We see here, this isn't anything about being suitable. It's more a concept of being in front of or opposite of. And to confirm that, we could once again look at the abridged Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew English lexicon. Now, the way I got there last time was from the Bible word study. I'm going to show you another way you could get there. If you have right-clicked on counterpart, and once again, you don't want this selected, you want to select the Hebrew word because we're doing a Hebrew word study, and I click look up. Now, because in my library I have other lexicons, it's going to take me to a more complete definition of it. But I'm going to once again look at the free version, which would be the abridged Brown Driver Briggs, and it gives me actually a fairly lengthy article here on this. Neged means what is conspicuous or in front, always as an adverb or preposition, in front of, in sight of, opposite to. So now let's think of it as if God is saying, I will make for him a helper in front of him, a helper opposite him. Counterpart is probably a good translation in this case, because the idea here is probably not where she is spatially located. In fact, you see in this definition, for A it says locally. It could be a location, that's what they mean by locally, or it could be B, mentally, vividly present to, before your face, in view of, or the purpose. And they give different ways that this word could be used. In this case, probably what we're talking about is that God is saying, I'm going to make him someone who can be a helper to him, who is there along with him, a companion, a counterpart to him. Now going back to that search, where it showed all the places where neged occurs in the Old Testament, we can look at the occurrences and we see, okay, it's in these two passages in Genesis 2 again. It occurs later in Genesis. And she went and sat opposite him. And so as we go through and we look at all these different occurrences, now in this case you have 152 results, so this goes on quite a bit. In that case, I'm not going to read all 152 results. I might just look at the results in the Pentateuch. There I'm limited to Genesis, Exodus. It appears that it doesn't occur in Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That would be enough to give me an idea of the meaning of the word. Now, some of them are going to surprise me. For example, Numbers 25:4, Yahweh said to Moses, "Take all the leaders of the people and kill them before the sun, so the fierce anger of Yahweh will turn from Israel." All this is packed into the word neged. Well, there's probably other stuff going on in the context of that passage that indicates the killing of them. Probably this idea of before the sun is expressed by the word neged. We don't want to say, hey, because that's what neged means in Numbers 25, that's what it means in Genesis 2. Don't make that mistake when you're doing a word study. Just like in English, if I looked at all of the places where the word helper occurred, I might find, hey, there's this product in the grocery store called Hamburger Helper. What this means is this is something that I can use as an ingredient in making hamburger, or in I don't actually know what Hamburger Helper is. Is it something you add to the meat, or is it the meat itself? I'm not even sure. I guess it's probably something that you add to the meat. And so, if we came away from that and said, oh, the word helper means an additive. No, we've misunderstood the English word. Same thing like if you use the English word hot. If I say that, man, it is hot, I'm probably talking about the physical temperature. But if I say, wow, she is hot, I'm probably not talking about her temperature. If I say, there are a number of different cases where we can use the word hot. If I say this food is hot, I could be talking about its temperature, but I could also be talking about it being spicy. And so we know in English that words can have different meanings. It's the same in Hebrew. So don't do a Bible word study and then say, aha, because it means this here, it must mean that there. Aha, because Ezer refers to God in one place, then everywhere where Ezer occurs, it must be that the woman is a god. No, that's not what that means. It must be that the woman is higher than the man. No, that's not what the word means. What we do word studies for is to help us get an idea of a range of meaning. And sometimes an English word may limit that range, or may give us a different range than what the Hebrew word actually has. For example, if we thought that a helper was simply an assistant, we would be misunderstanding the Hebrew word. If we thought that the word neged simply meant counterpart, we would be limiting the word. It really is very broad in its meaning, and it just means either an opposite or something that is before you, or something that is in front of you. Lots of different ways that you can go with that word. And so a Hebrew word study is a helpful tool, and Logos Bible Software makes it easy. Now you can do the same work with a concordance. You may have Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, and you are then able to find out, hey, what is the word? There's a Strong's number for the word that you are looking up, and you might find what that number is and look at all the verses that contain that particular Hebrew word. You're doing the same thing, but Logos Bible Software makes it a little bit quicker and easier for you. And so that is how you do a word study in Hebrew, and that should be able to help you in your exegesis paper. Now, as I'm writing the exegesis paper, I'm not going to talk about all 152 times that the word occurs. I might just simply say this word has a range of meaning, and in this particular context, it appears that this particular meaning is fitting. Translators have already made those decisions for you, but sometimes we need to actually see the steps that they went through to get to translating this counterpart instead of suitable, to be able to help us to understand that. In fact, whoever first translated the word suitable was really trying to grasp at, how do I render in English this concept of as your opposite, a helper who's there in front of you. It's and somehow the translator decided, it's something that's that's there for you, something that is acceptable to you. Maybe suitable is a good word for that. And this is why translations differ, is because translators are looking at a Hebrew word and trying to figure out what to do with it. They're looking at this data that we come up with in a word study, and that's what we want you to do in this exercise, is to be able to look at the data, and in the process you're going to gain a better understanding of what the word means.